brothers and sisters, today we gathered in the Jum'ah in this time of reflection for us to come and worship Allah with all our hearts, with all sincerity, with what we have to offer to the Almighty in terms of our state of being. The state of the human being is in a miserable condition. We as humans have devolved into non-humans in our actions. We have become the lowest of low, where a reporter can actually kick an old man, a refugee, carrying his son and falling and making sure that he falls, and then she's videoing that person falling. That lifeless carcass of a human being, I don't know whether she should be given the designation of a reporter, maybe not even an animal, because even animals dignify themselves. For somebody fleeing persecution from bombs and bullets, from hunger and starvation, and trying to seek some kind of refuge. That's why they're called refugees. In order to kick them, in order to mock them, to humiliate them, and then say, oh, in history these things happened, but it shall never happen again. It's happening again and again. So this is the state of the human being, the state of man, how he is unjust. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. That verily, because Allah, the Lord of the universe, describes the human being in the most meticulous fashion, because He is the creator of the human being. إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. That verily this human being, meaning this entity that we have created, ظَلُومًا, that he is unjust, jahula, that they're ignorant, meaning to say that's the state of the human being. If it doesn't understand where it's going, it doesn't have introspection, does not know how to live a life, that's what will happen. That's why you will kick an old man with his child, frightening the child, making the old man filled with anxiety. How do you do that? How do you do that to 2 billion people? This is my point. How do you do that to 2 billion people? Where's the Ummah, really? This is what I'm asking today. How do you do that? We're worried about our petty issues in our masajids. Little small thing, who's going to lead the prayer? I'm better, I know more. What will you do? 2 billion people. 2 billion people. What will happen to them? What's happening to us? How do they actually kick this man down in front of other human beings? And nothing. That's why I say we boycott every Hungarian product there is. We write letters, we make petitions, rather than sitting there watching videos. If you want to use this open sewer called the internet, then use it for whatever little good that it has to provide. Put a petition through. Make sure that your voices are heard. How do they do that to an old man? Did you see the fright on the kid's face? I just saw the picture. That's why I don't have a television. I saw the picture on Al Jazeera. See what's really happening in the world. And it really made me incensed. And that's why the state of the human being, ignorant and unjust. Ignorant and unjust. Not only that reporter has to be dealt with from being ejected from her position as a reporter, but she should have the consequences from the government. But if the government is actually shooting refugees who are fleeing persecution, shooting refugees, no world leaders are saying that this is wrong, or we're protecting our borders? Is that something that's right? Where's the Geneva Convention? Where's the Convention on Refugees? Nobody's saying anything? They're fleeing persecution. What are the Syrians? They never caused anyone any grief. All of a sudden now they're in news. What happened to them? The great civilization, what happened? All of a sudden they just melted into nothingness? Oh, chaotic, they're just leaving their home because they want to bask in this barren, I'll refrain from negativity, this country called Hungary. let it be hungry for a long time if it's doing this kind of act. Shooting and water cannon and giving jail terms to poor men, women and children who are fleeing persecution with their kids. Just imagine, you going from here to your house, if your kid is actually upset, you actually lose all your scruples. You don't know what to do with yourself. Okay, give it food or what, how? Okay, be quiet until we get home. Okay, are you okay? If your child has a fever, you can't actually sleep at night. What happens to this child? Being kicked with its father. How do you think it's going to be ingrained in this child's mind? What do you think the father is going to feel? Humiliation all his life that he was kicked in front of his son like this, from this woman trying to actually take a picture. Can you imagine reporting, taking a picture and kicking an old man to the ground? Sick. Poor sign, I would say. Pig-like. But even the swines would not do such an act. Secondly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَهُوَ الَّذِي يَحْيَاكُمْ ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ ثُمَّ يُحْيِيكُمْ. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is He, that is meaning He, the Lord, cherisher, sustainer of the universe, is the one who gave you life, then He gives you death, and then He gives you life again. Meaning there is accountability. But look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says after that. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَكَفُورٌ. Verily the human being is ungrateful. Meaning to say you were given life, you were given death, and then you were given life again. But you're ungrateful because you don't know these cycles. You don't know these cycles. Transgression, when it is reached to the level of self-sufficiency. كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطْغَى أَن رَآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. Did you not see the human being? Verily, no, the human being has become self-sufficient. Meaning he thinks, did you not see the person self-sufficient? Staghna, meaning from that he is self-sufficient. When the human being reaches all bounds of transgression, meaning that they've just broken all bounds. La yatagha, meaning they've breaking all transgressions. Becomes, don't you see, it becomes self-sufficient. Self-sufficient. So when you think that your passport is worth more than a human life in other places, one color passport is worth more than thousands and hundreds and thousands of other color passports. This new phenomena of passports, it's supposed to be a pass to get into the port. Now it's become a hindrance. The same people who actually made or who inhabit different countries of the world, who were immigrants themselves, their forefathers were, relegated the natives to these barren lands called, or these are their reserves. You can't even grow a potato on it. Gave them the worst lands. Sons and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of people who immigrated themselves by force are made what? To make borders now so that even people who are fleeing persecution should not be given any respite. This is called transgression. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ عَجُولًا. That verily the human being is in haste. That the human being has haste. And this is what the human being does. Haste. Get there. I need my home. I need my wealth. I need. It's always about me. Haste. Let me get it in haste. But other people suffering, they should keep suffering because we're going to make some kind of directives and maybe help them. Let them keep suffering because it's not my suffering. We're not human beings any longer. That's what I think. We don't act like human beings. Even Abu Darda radiallahu anhu and many other companions to that same line of thinking said if they were to see meaning the former companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were to see these people, they would think that they were not human beings. And that was at that time. How about now? women and children sitting there. Oh, if you cross into my border, you are going to get a jail term. Just wonderful. And no outrage for that. Nothing. Nobody says anything. That's okay. World leader. Well, this is not the plight. No, no. So if a boy in Texas brings a clock to show his teacher that, look, I have some scientific prowess. He gets to the detention area, handcuffed, fingerprinted, and accused because his name is Ahmed Muhammad, of Sudanese descent. And I believe his mother is white, Caucasian. But because he has brown skin, due to his descent from Sudan, and his name is Ahmed Muhammad, it became a problem that he brought a digital clock that he made himself to school. So you must fingerprint him, and he's suspect, you see? And that's all. At least even Mr. Obama, perchance his name, he still considers Hussein, that he felt a little bit guilty going on his way out. Although in his first bid for the presidencyship, there were two sisters who were wearing hijab in the back. They had to be moved because of there should be no linking with him and Muslims, you see. They moved them. Nobody remembers that. But now he tweets that, Ahmed, would you like to come to the White House, right? Would you like to come to the White House? You have to give him credit where it's due, although it's a little bit too late. He didn't do anything for the African Americans who are still wallowing in poverty. Majority of them in terms of making up the incarcerated rate. It's a totally different story. But yet, others are stepping up. Because it's a travesty. How do you do that to a boy? How does that boy actually come out of that? Being handcuffed, seeing all the things, fingerprinted, roughed up. What do you think? And then the police had the audacity to say, well, we don't think that there's any kind of terror link to this. A boy made a clock to show his teacher. What are you talking about, terror link? Seriously, I think that's why the human beings have gone to lunch. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, if قُلْ لَوْ أَنْتُمْ تَمْلِكُونَ خَزَائِنِ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّي, that if you were to have all of what the treasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning His Lord, would have, that you would be actually in fear of poverty. You would be in fear of poverty. وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ قَطُورًا, that verily the human being is even a bigger ingrate than that. Meaning to say it's past all its limits. Past all its limits. And this is what we have done to us. The human being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes, وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا, that verily the human being is prone to dispute. So we will dispute. We will sit in our masajid and dispute. When is Hajj? Gotta go by the moon. Well, Hajj is not taking place in Pakistan. Hajj is not taking place in Indonesia. And it's not taking place in Tunisia. It's taking place in the land of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So even if there's a fiqh interpretation that if there's no communication, that you cite the moon as a matla, that's a different thing. It's a minority opinion. But don't use that. These days everything is instant. Don't you think? One time we had to make, for the sake of this unity has to be based on Allah and His Messenger, on some sincerity. We had to actually fast, which was ridiculous. But we went along. There was Arafah in the land of the Prophet ﷺ, and we are fasting the next day when they're having Eid, because we are sighting the moon. We did that one year for the sake of unity. And we're almost being pushed this year to do the same thing, which is ridiculous. Hajj is with Arafah. And if you have Arafah there, Like I said, you know, the Kaaba is not in Dartmouth. So if it's there, this is what we have to follow. Get with the program. This is what we have to do. Prone to disputing. When's the moon? But you don't understand how to take your kids to eat. Kicking the walls, shouting, screaming. You missed the Fajr, no problem. Missed the Isha, no problem. But you are going to dispute now. Is it calculation or is it moon sighting? And have no understanding of both concepts. But you're going to give the fatwa and you're going to waste 2-3 hours in Tim Hortons calling every brother that you know that's against that evil. Prone to dispute. Allah describes us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا. That verily the human being is made anxious. So always anxious. What about me? How about me? It's going to be me. My kids, my wife, my car, my house, my this, my... It's always me. Anxious. What's going to happen to me? Down the road. Me. How am I going to get through? My job. What's going to happen? Anxious, anxious. Always about me. إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا. And if some evil befalls, the human being is impatient. Take this yoke from my neck. Get it off. I don't want it anymore. Why do I want this yoke? Please help me. Get it off. My problem is the biggest problem. Who cares? Syrian refugees? Really, I don't care. My problems. I didn't get my scholarship yet. Oh, I only have 5,000 in my account. That's not enough to last me 2 months. I have my spending. I have my bills. Take this off my neck. Akhi, please. Impatient. وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. And Allah is describing in meticulous detail, and if goodness were to fall, the human being is withholding. The human being withholds. Because becomes self-sufficient. The hand doesn't go anymore. Some people have come from villages from back home and seen people, you know, in tatters and having a hard life. They could help them. They could help a family every year to stand on their feet. They could build a small house for each family every year. They have enough. Because khair is fallen them, they become withholding. So these are signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put to dissect the human psyche. The psychology of the human being is totally and clear, manifest vision that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in the Quran itself. One of the Salaf as-Salih, he said, it is a very difficult situation that one has to pass his life amongst the living and follow the footsteps of the dead. Meaning to say that we say, Fulan, such scholar, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on all of them, did this tabi'in did this companion did that. And we try to follow in that footstep and still living amongst the ones who are living, but we're trying to follow the footsteps of the dead, meaning to say it is difficult. He also said that it is the love of wealth and property that prolongs a human being's hope, a man's hope. Man here, because it's old writing, you translate it into man, but means the human being itself. Prolongs a man's hope, wealth and property. This is what I want. Quickly give it to me. Oh, it's my paycheck. It's my hours. It's me. I've done it. Overtime. I need it. I need. It's only me. Not worried about somebody else. Human being's hope prolongs it. The love of the world makes man oblivious of the hereafter. Too much absorbed in the worldly affairs. Oblivious. I don't know what's coming after. I don't really have time to think about it. I'm absorbed in my dunya. This is what I'm absorbed with. Trahat dunya. وَمِنْ عَادَاتِهَا تَخْفِضُ الْعَالِي وَتُعْلِي مَنْ سَفَلْ. Ibn al-Wardi said, leave the dunya, because from its customary ways, it makes somebody who is high low, and somebody who is a low life high. And you can see it in your days. You can see it in your days. He tries to justify this love by thinking that his requirements of money may perhaps increase during his old age. So the human being right now says, oh, if I'm going to get old, then my requirement for money is going to get more. Maybe, perchance, I don't know. But since I'm going to get older, I need to amass it. And when he may not be able to earn money on the account of infirmity, disease, or old age. So you gotta say, I need, because once I get old, what will happen to me? What will happen to me? He goes on to say, thousands of such misleading insinuations, waswas, and ideas involve him in greed, makes him greedy. Involves him in greed for the worldly resources. I gotta get. Such a man pays greater attention to his food and drink, his dress, and the changes of seasons. Oh, it's autumn, I have to have this jacket. It's winter, I must have this one. It's fall, I have to have this. But not worried about some orphan that doesn't even have a piece of clothing on their back. And then we say, this is ummah of the last messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before you make that pronouncement, try to live that life. He thinks that if he has a long lease on life, he must amass as much wealth to pass his later days of his life with ease and freedom from want. So you need to have enough. Your pension plan, hundreds and thousands of dollars in the bank, and you need to have that because you need to be free of want at that time. An endless train of thoughts assail, meaning all these thoughts keep beating the human being day in and day out. You'll get poor, you won't have enough, how are you going to live this life? You have a nice car now, you're not going to have it after this, you will not have a nice house, who's going to pay your bills? All of these things assail the human being, bludgeon that human being to pieces on a daily basis. And his mind, on the account of which he laid waste the precious days of his life. So all the days of your life, rather than looking for khair, going to the masjid, doing the Quran, making hifz, doing all of these other things, helping poor, helping the refugees, saying a word of truth, writing an article, doing these things, building a masjid, building an institution, coming to the Arabic class, making hifz, all of these things. I can't be bothered with it. I can't be bothered with it. Because I've been beaten up by my thoughts. How much will I get if I get back home? If I don't get the certificate, I won't get that job. You see? You see? Thus he becomes miserly, parsimonious, stingy, doesn't want to let go, tightwad, and exposed to baseless anxieties, fears, and worries. So all you have is worries. Worries of yesterday, worries of tomorrow, worries of today will just totally ruin any human being, will not be able to stand. There's a philosopher, Seneca, Lucius Seneca. He's a Stoic. So somebody that knows philosophy, you have the Stoics, you have the skeptics, you have the Epicureans, and you have the cynics. The cynics, I mean, there's a big debate on what this and that. The Epicurus himself was cynic, so but anyway, he has a branch. But the Stoics, Seneca was of the Stoics. They believed in the Almighty, they believed in God. It wasn't a godless kind of philosophy. And something, I mean, this person was amazing. His thought process was amazing. And his hikmah, we take, as Rasulullah ﷺ said, take weekend is the lost property of the believer. Said, what difference does it make after all what your position in life is if you dislike it yourself? That's really something for us to think about. That's our problem. What difference does it make what position you have in life, if you dislike it yourself, I'm not happy. I'm just not happy with the position in life, my lot in life, not happy. I could be rich, I could be having everything, somebody saying, oh wow, I have greed for this. But if you're not happy, who cares? Really. He also said in another quote to his letters to Lucilius. It's an amazing, takes some thought process. But his letters, something that he's giving, he's parting. And whenever he's talking in his letters, he's saying that perchance somebody else will read them down the road. Meaning he's giving all his energies, so something better will come by afterwards. Because he himself was persecuted and then facing a hapless journey's end. He says, it does not make any difference what a man says. What matters is how he feels. How he feels. And not how he feels one particular day, but how he feels all the time. Only the wise man is content with what is his. Only the wise person is content with what is his. Rida nafs, this is hadith. That he's content with what he has. All foolishness suffer the burden of dissatisfaction with itself. Meaning he says totally foolishness because you're not happy with yourself. I'm never happy, oh woe to me. But in Islam you should only have regret that you have wasted the days, and you're wasting it now and you may waste it tomorrow. But never to lie in iktiyab and some kind of depression that I can't get ahead. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us a people who have moral integrity, who see the light at the end of the tunnel. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us blessed. Ameen.